What's really dangerous, but everyone treats it like it's safe? Sunburns would be treated much differently if they were called by their true name. Radiation burns. I will now only be calling them radiation burns. I read these comments as sideburns and was very confused for a moment. I will call sideburns radiation burns from now on. Driving. Driving also makes walking super dangerous in my city. I don't have a car where I live and I almost got hit by a car that blew the red light yesterday. Cars are constantly speeding here, even on residential streets, blowing stop signs and red lights. I always have to hesitate before I cross, even if I have the walk sign. No one does shit. I am visually impaired, so I walk with a white cane when needed. I was crossing the street with my white cane out. I had the right of way, and a cop was turning right, and had to swerve to not hit me, due to him not paying attention. No one knows how to drive. Long hair, around pulleys and belts. There's a YouTube channel, where two young ladies are working around a sawmill, with long hair, and I can't count how many times people have begged them in the comments to tuck their hair up. They don't. In 11th grade, I had hair down to my butt, and was weirdly pretty good at working the horizontal lathe at my school. Tons of rotating parts, it's used to cut and shave down pieces of metal. I had my hair in a ponytail, instead of a bun, and I thought someone was pulling my hair, and then my head slammed down to the machine, and within like 3 seconds my hand broke, 'cause I put my hand in to save my hair. My classmate pulled the plug on the machine, and saved my life. Infections. Every person reacts differently to them. Don't assume you are the average. Sepsis is no joke. Met a woman and her husband in 2018 at a show, nice people. Few months later she messaged our group chat, and her husband had died of sepsis. He'd been sick, but refused to go to the hospital because of expenses. In the end, he lost his life, trying to save money. He was only in his early 30s too. Yeah, I got cellulitis from a mosquito bite, while on vacation, and I was running a fever and wanted to go to the doctor, when we got home. Got home, and was like, I'll go in the morning, but my wife had other ideas, and made me go to the ER that night. Ended up admitted for 3 days of IV vancomycin and linezolid, and 2 more weeks of oral linezolid. I had no idea that it was that bad, and would have F around and found out, except for my wife laying down the law on me. Wild animals. I was in Thailand when a 30-year-old got bitten by a monkey. Her complaint? No one had warned her not to pet the monkeys. Honest to God. The wild animal acted naturally. The true danger here was her stupidity. I would argue that, as a stupid person, she also acted naturally. Stupid's gonna stupid, monkey's gonna monkey. Compressed air. I was once putting air in a car tire, while on a road trip with a friend. After filling the last tire, I handed him the tube and started screwing on the cap. For some dumb effing reason, he thought it would be funny to stick the air tube in my ear and turn it on. I couldn't hear out of that ear for like 20 minutes, and it hurt so effing much. I probably should have gone to the hospital, but the pain went away almost instantly and my hearing came back, so I just didn't effing go. Water on the road. You might be able to drive through it, but more often than not, you shouldn't try to. My brother literally drives into the puddle, and the idiot even says that it's safer to go faster in them, because the water separates. He hasn't had an accident yet, but if he does one day, the likelihood of it being because of that backward mentality is quite high. Those bullshit carny rides at state fairs. But the thrill of it all. The rusty bolts shaking, looking like they are about to snap off, everything just being plugged in, with some frayed extension cords from the 90s, or the chain-smoking operator, who looks like he's been awake for 48 hours from drinking or drugs. How could not feel safe with all of that? Riding a horse is comparable with serious extreme sports, and head injuries are the most common. See kayaking. Simple, but you're in serious trouble if you flip around and can't get back in. A few days before my wedding, my wife, my sister and a couple of her kids went to a ranch, where we rode horses, for an hour or two. Fun outing, right? My sister fell off her horse, and walked back with it. She wasn't going to get back on. For the next couple days she was telling us she must have pulled a muscle or something when she fell, because it kept hurting. Yeah, we'd say, a bit sick of hearing about it. She finally went to the hospital. Had 2 broken ribs and a punctured lung, and had to spend the night while they drained her abdominal cavity. Alcohol. Alcohol and benzos are the only substances that can physically cause death from withdrawal. One needs a script, and one I can get walking 10 minutes down the street. Edit. In rare cases, severe opioid withdrawals can cause excessive N/V/D, which can lead to dehydration and other complications that can be fatal. Household, everyday cleaning chemicals. Especially if you mix them to make a better, stronger, cleaner. My mom always told me never to mix Windex and bleach. Windex is ammonia-based, so yes, that's very good advice. Mustard gas tends to lead to unpleasantness. I get a lot of tourists in my area trying to casually summit the local 14,000 feet mountain in sandals. Some weeks in the summer are absolutely nuts for SAR and the emergency room staff. ETA, SAR equals search and rescue. And then you have that crazy old guy in sandals that passes you on the way up and then passes you again on his way down, before you've even made it up, LOL. 1. That guy is crazy. 2. That guy is old. He's got decades of experience. He knows the when and how of sandals. 3. Those sandals are probably Chacos. Blunt kitchen knives. One might think, oh, this is just a flat piece of steel, but cutting becomes tearing and crushing. The extra force this takes can easily send the knife off in an unintended direction, in a swift and uncontrollable manner. Then you find out what a flat piece of steel can do to your fingers. 100% agree. I always got told and teach people that a sharp knife is safer, as it will do what you want it to do, but a blunt needs more force and has a higher chance of slipping. Reminded me of a quote, a sharp knife goes where you want it to go. A dull knife goes where it wants to go. Childbirth, for both mother and child. I nearly died during childbirth. I was coated and everything. My uterus ruptured, and I bled out. They gave me 10 units of blood and 16 units of saline, plus the Montana Highway Patrol had to drive 100 miles, on icy roads, to another larger city to get a special med from them, because my smaller town's hospital didn't carry it. 100% normal pregnancy, with zero complications, up until then. Loneliness. The NHS, British healthcare system, did a study like this, develop a statistical definition of loneliness, a threshold of social connections, below which, yeah, the subject is pretty surely lonely. Examine the difference in death rate between people in the same demographic categories, who are lonely, as defined, or not lonely. Being lonely turns out to have about the same risk as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Trampolines. Especially with multiple people. Bruised my ribs from jumping on a trampoline as a kid, and getting launched off of it by a weight imbalance from two friends who were also jumping on it with me. That literally knocked the air out of me when I hit the ground, and I thought I was gonna die because I couldn't breathe. I still have stiffness in that side of my ribcage. I can't bend over all the way sideways on that side like I can on the other. I haven't been on a trampoline since. Motorcycles, ATVs, really anything without a cage around it. Even if you wear a helmet, the brunt of the impact force goes on your spinal column. ATVs can be very dangerous. My sister's friend knew a girl who died on her birthday after the ATV flipped over. That's why, when I ride ATVs with my cousin, I be careful not to make aggressive turns at high speed. ATVs are notoriously dangerous. People are either killed or left paralyzed all the time. I'm not saying they need to be outlawed, but people just need to know they are tip and flip happy vehicles. Stress. I feel like this should be way higher up than the people repeating alcohol and driving in the ocean over and over. Like for sure, all are dangerous, but stress? I have a prolactinoma. A tumor, not malignant or cancerous, but a friggin' tumor that literally secretes hormones, sitting on my MF pituitary gland, causing all sorts of BS, and the root cause: stress. Tumors, weight problems, sleep problems, relationship problems, all sorts of MF problems, caused by stress. Having your Snapchat location on. Yay, I thought about it in high school, and was wondering mostly why girls had it on. I knew girls that added random people for streaks. Dumb thing to do. It's mind-boggling to me how much I gave a shit about something so stupid as Snapchat streaks. It's cool to have a lot of long ones, but if the primary way that I'm talking to another person is them sending me a black screen, with a drawn S on it, then that's not a real friendship. Going to a bar, drinking, and driving home. It's so goddamn casual. I moved from a place that's really walkable, and with public transport to one of the least walkable cities, where people don't live within walking distance of bars or restaurants. For a long time, I didn't understand how people have a nightlife here, or go out, without spending a fortune on Ubers. Turns out, nearly everyone is casually driving around, drunk. The same goes for elderly people, who are no longer able to drive that live in places that are not walkable. Sooner or later, they are going to be driving around casually, while being too impaired, because for them they don't have a choice. That's just the consequence of having communities completely built around cars. It's really not accessible. The springs in your garage door. One of those yeeted itself across my garage, through 2 paint cans, and punched a hole in the drywall. We installed safety cables after that surprise. LPD, put some lubricant on those springs periodically. If they aren't lubed, the loops of each spring will rub on the loop next to it, causing friction. Over time the friction causes enough stress on the loops and eventually one will snap. Most of the time it's harmless, and you end up with a garage door that won't open. But because they are springs under tension, the possibility of one breaking loose and flying away is always there. Texting and driving. My friend died texting and driving. She was 23. It makes me so angry when I see people doing it. Edited to add, people can have moments where they do bad things without being a bad person. She was moving to Oxford and was driving to her new flat that day. She was about to start a job as a 999 call operator, and she was so excited. Her family went public with the story, in a bid to try to persuade others not to do the same. I think she was just so excited and nervous with the move, and people messaging her, wishing her luck, that she just made a split-second decision to look at her phone whilst driving. She was just very lucky she didn't seriously hurt or kill anyone else. I remember looking on her Facebook page after it happened, and it was the days where people still wrote on each other's walls. A friend of hers had written, saying, "Tracy, pick up your phone. Is everything okay?" And then more and more messages imploring her to answer her phone and let her know she was okay. It was awful. Please do not look at your phone whilst driving. It's not worth killing yourself or someone else. Say this as a passionate stoner. Weed. In hell, it's addictive, and it sure affects your psychological well-being. And smoking it is, well, smoking in general, very unhealthy, not only to your lungs, but also the cardiovascular system and your genes. Yes, your genes. 1000%. Weed is great, but a lot of people think it is the safest thing on earth, but it's not. It is addictive, and chronic use is dangerous, for your brain most importantly. But every time we try to say it, people deny that. The number of people who end up in the psych ward because of weed is huge. And no, these people are not schizophrenic. Not stopping for school bus stop sign. I saw a cop blow right past a stopped bus that had their sign out and flashing. He was mere inches away from running over a small child. It was probably traumatic for the poor little kid. Everyone began yelling and cursing out the cop, and he never even slowed down or acknowledged it. Cops wonder why everybody hates them. Resin. It is toxic if not used with appropriate ventilation and equipment, including gloves and a mask, but everyone uses it for projects in their little apartment studios. Always stresses me out to see that. Shouldn't be anywhere effing near food, either. Even most food-safe resins, which is already a dubious claim, is going to leach after being washed in hot water. Especially if you shove your resin-covered coffee cup, or cheese board, or WE in the dishwasher, like so many people on TikTok claim you can. Reminds me of my friend, who does resin art for a living. I know resin can be nasty, in terms of smell and toxicity, but when she showed me how she works with it, it's like working in a clean room in a factory. LMAO. I work with resin, and I hate seeing those videos of people making tumblers, or whatever, with their bare hands, in their kitchens, with their effing kids running around, getting exposed to all those fumes. Resin toxicity scares me. I have a whole ass hydroponic grow tent set up to cast in, outfitted with intake and outtake inline fans, so I can draw outdoor air into the tent, and then vent it back out, via ducts without the fumes wafting through my home, or settling on my stuff. People don't realize that it's still toxic while curing either even if it's past the cure time frame. If it's soft cured at all, i.e. you can dent it with a fingernail, it will be permanently giving off toxic fumes. All my equipment and projects and PPE live in airtight containers, which I only open outside. I wear a face respirator as well. I've made mixing errors before too, where it'll never set, because I mixed up my ratios, so I just usually use a Tyvek suit, because it's easier to trash if I get uncured stuff on it, and it never sets. Resin is no joke, and should never be taken lightly, as a fun craft, without proper PPE and precautions. Social media. Of everything I've seen in this thread, social media goes right up there, with alcohol, in my book. We all need less of both. The world is a crazy place. I was just talking about how terrible social media has become. It's literally a brain drain, to keep people focused on unimportant things, and basically, keep people stupid. I'm a huge techie and liberal, but social media has become possibly one of the biggest problems in our society, right now. Animals. Like they're cool and all, but like they're still animals. It's not a reason to try and get up close to them. There's a reason that safari tours stop 200 feet away from the animal. There's a reason that zoos have glass and metal bars separating you and the animal. Just because an animal is used to be people, doesn't mean you should get up close to it. Same thing with pets. Pets have the restraint to not actually try and hurt you if you bug them, because they love you, and know you are not trying to hurt them. But they are still capable of enforcing boundaries, meaning don't act like your pet won't bite or scratch you, or a kid, when the kid is messing with his face, or actively causing pain, or fear without intent. Too many animals were killed, or labeled as dangerous, because humans assumed they didn't have boundaries. Over-the-counter painkillers. They are easily abused, and can cause liver and/or kidney damage. Okay, it may be different in my country, but aren't over-the-counter painkillers essentially regular paracetamol? Regular paracetamol easily can cause liver failure if abused and/or is used with alcohol. The dosage for OD is relatively low. As little as 4,000 mg in 24 hours can send you into liver failure. Extra-strength Tylenol pills are 500 mg a pop. That's 8 pills. People will also regularly abuse preparations that contain opioids to get a buzz. They often don't realize the acetaminophen in these pills can end your life faster than the opiates can, in some instances. OTC drugs can be just as dangerous as prescription drugs, or even illicit, when they're not taken with caution. Crosswalks. Been a part of a lot field trips, and usually hear one teacher imply that crosswalks will keep you safe from cars. I mean, I'm a teacher, and I do teach my kids to cross at the crosswalk, as cars expect you to cross there. It's better than just crossing in the middle of the street. But I obviously tell them to look both ways first. People have this rigid sense of right and wrong, and I've seen too many pedestrians who don't bother to look, or immediately start walking, without checking that the cars are at least braking. Can't be right if you're in the morgue. I always teach my kids to walk defensively, and verbalize and model the checklist of what we do as pedestrians. More than crosswalks, I'd say parking lots are very dangerous. So many people will walk directly behind a car, with its brake and reverse lights on, without hesitating. Taking Coke to stay awake, for more drinking. Coke and alcohol actually combine in a weird way in your liver when you do them together. It produces a chemical called cocaethylene. This stuff is much worse for your heart than Coke alone, and you are about 20 times more likely to OD when drinking with Coke. It is weird how seemingly unknown this is, despite the frequency of people combining these particular drugs. It's terrifying how people think uppers cancel out downers. Also, the amount of alcohol it takes to make someone pass out is dangerously close to the amount it takes to kill you from alcohol poisoning. I'm surprised no one said vending machines yet. Those effers kill more people per year than sharks, which are mostly undeservedly villainized. Also, dogs. Vending machines are only dangerous because dumbasses shake those things to get stuff out that's stuck/to loot them. Easily avoidable danger. Second on the dogs. I've been around dogs for most of my life. It often comes down to the owner, either through poor training or not correctly restraining them. As well trained as I believe my dogs to be, especially since most my dogs have been in the 70 to 100 pounds range, I always restrain them around other people and animals. People often forget that these are animals, descended from wolves. If you can't properly contain your dog, if you can't, or don't know how to, properly train your dog, then, you shouldn't own one. Your number one priority as a dog owner is, to take precaution, both for the sake of your own pet, and everyone around them. Mental illness from unsuspecting stranger. You might make a comment, or even just look at somebody wrong, who is psychotic and very dangerous. Psychotic people are scared as hell. The violence it causes, is a rare exception. They feel, as if people are out to get them, might feel an impending sense of doom, etc. Random/violent events do happen, exceptionally. But it's unfair, to stigmatize mental illness, further. People with mental illness, are actually more likely to be the victims of violence, rather than perpetrators. It's really rather rare, that they get violent. Going to the bar. Most people are used to do this, so, maybe they don't think much about it. But whenever I used to go alone, I would always hear horrifying stories about what this person plans to do, etc. That and the fact, anyone could spike my drink, for whatever reason. So, if I'm a guy scared of going to bars, I can only imagine how some women feel. Co-sleeping with infants. Those that claim, "Oh, I did it with my baby and turned out fine," are just claiming survivor's bias. It's not safe, and I know 2 people who have lost kids, because of it. Don't fall asleep with your baby in your arms, in your bed, or next to you. All it takes is, you rolling over, or a pillow falling over, while you're passed out, to kill a baby. It's a silent killer. This goes for most unsafe practices, like improper car seats, untested baby devices, even certain clothes used at bedtime, can be extremely dangerous. Working and playing outside, when a storm with thunder and or lightning is approaching, or upon them. Lightning can strike a person, something they're holding, or something they're near, with little to no warning, and can potentially strike people, miles away, from the storm cloud. Moist rooms with, slight mold traces, on the walls, especially in countries with rainy season. People just shrug it off, as if it were a natural inconvenience. It's not. The parts of the mold which are invisible, spores mostly, can cause irreparable damage to the lungs, eyes, and every single other organ, in a short time. The houses, in these regions, were built with different materials pre-colonization for reasons.